Hello everyone, my name is Mugdha Deoskar and today I'll be sharing the skills I have learned while working on a Rubik's Cube solver project using React.js, Node.js and MySQL. We will explore these technologies in details and demonstrate how to set up a React project using Visual Studio Code. Now, first of all, we need to understand that what is React.js. React is a JavaScript library which was developed by Facebook for building user interfaces, especially for single page applications. And applications are built using reusable component, which means manage and update the UI efficiently. For example, I've created a component for the Rubik's Cube input and another for displaying the instructions. Like JSX, we here use JSX. JSX is a syntax extension that looks similar to HTML and it is used to describe the UI structure. JSX is used to create the structure for the Rubik's Cube solver interface. Now, what are states and props in React framework? State basically represents the component's local state, while props are used to pass the data between the components. Then React components go through various phases and lifecycle method which allow you to run the code at specific time using a component's life. Here, example like fetching the data when the component mounts. Then we will be talking about Node.js and now here we are going to basically talk about the how to install, how to create the React app basically. So before doing that, we have basically explored about what is React, that it is a JavaScript library, right? Now what are the steps to create the React app? To learn and test React, we need to set up the React environment on a computer. Here we are going to make the use of the command prompt. Desktop. Now we are going to write create. npx. This is basically the tutorial, right, on your Visual Studio Code. How can you set up the create React app? So it is npx create React app. And it is going to now install the packages. What does it say is that a complete log of this can be I've already created one, like we can open the React tutorial. React tutorial is this. Now, and we can basically write over here npm start either over here or we can write it on our Visual Studio Code, right? Here you could see that on available free localhost it is going to run your React application. So this is basically how do you create. By default it runs on localhost 3000. So this is where you have started. Now before jumping on to React.js, you should have the experience about HTML, CSS and JavaScript. You should also have some experience with the new JavaScript features, which is ECMS script known as ES6, right? So this was basically about the how to create the React app. Now we are going to talk about the components in React. Components are independent and reusable bits of code. They serve the same purpose as the JavaScript function, but they work in isolation and they return HTML. Then components come in two types, class component and function components. In this tutorial, we are going to basically concentrate on function components. Creating your first component. Like when you're creating a React component, the component names will start with an uppercase letter. Okay. So over here we have basically created the component, and these components are usable. We can render those components, we can use their features. And how do we render those components using the render function? Then here we have something called as props, which I discussed earlier, that components can be passed as props, which stands for properties. Props are like function arguments, and you send them into the component as attribute. You will learn more about the props in the next upcoming tutorial if it exists. Like, let me create one component for you, and here we are going to make the use of the render function. Okay, like we will create the function. We are going to here pass the props and then return I am a props.color. After creating this, we are going to create a variable. Here, what does const stands for? Const here stands for, it is basically a keyword. Like if we do not want to change the value of a variable, whenever we are using the const keyword, the value of the variable is immutable, like it cannot change. So we are going to create here const root is equals to react dom dot create root document dot get element by id root. I'm going to show this. Let me open the folder. This is my folder. Here you can see that I have used react dom dot create root, right? Now what does this line means that we are creating const root? Here react dom.createRoot is a method used in React 18 to initialize and manage the rendering of the React application. So basically this keyword react dom.createRoot, what does this stand for? This creates a root for your React application where the React component tree will be mounted and rendered. Then document.getElement by ID. This JavaScript method selects the DOM element with the ID root. This is where the React app will be rendered in the HTML page. And then you can see here create element, right? You can see over here create element. This method is a part of the new component rendering features which were introduced in React 18. It enhances the performance and allowing the React to work in a more efficient way. So this will render the app component inside the element with ID root. Okay. So this was basically all about the React. Now we are going to switch on to SQL. Or basically there are some more things, like what is the use of the use state, which I have used over here, right? So basically React use state hook allows us to crack state in a function component. State generally here refers to data or properties that need to be tracking in an application. To use the use state hook, we first need to import it into our component. Okay, so at the top of the react.js server we write import, then in curly braces, like I'm giving just an example, we are not going to write in index.html, but we write it like this: import use state from React. So basically like this we write. Notice that we are restructuring use state from React. as it is a named export. Now how to initialize this use state? We initialize our state by calling the use state in our function component. Use state accepts an initial state and then it returns two values, the current state, a function that updates that state, and a function that updates that state, right? So in a project we can see that. Not the one this. Let me open cubesolver.js where I have used the use state. You can see here I have passed the values, the current state, and a function that is going to update the state, right? So this was basically all about the use state. The use state can be used to keep track of strings, numbers, booleans, arrays, object, and any combination of these. And we can create multiple state hooks to track the individual values. How to update the objects and arrays in state? So basically when state is updated, the entire states get overwritten. Now we are going to shift on MySQL. For that, in order to download MySQL, we visit this website mysql.com. Then we go to the downloads. In downloads we can see here the MySQL community downloads, MySQL installer for Windows, and from here, according to this 32 MSI installer, you can download and follow the steps to basically download your. So do remember that you have to download the workbench, and also you can run the command on terminal. Then it will ask for your password. Then you can see we have already opened. For my Rubik's Cube project, I have already created a database. You can create the database using the create database syntax Rubik's Cube. Then you are going to use this. After using this only, you are going to enter into your database. Then here you create the relation using the DDL script. Then you can manipulate them using the DML scripts. Here basically I have created a table using the create table syntax with the variables, or we don't say variables. We basically here the rows and columns are referred to as fields and the rows are referred to as tuples. So here I have used the fields ID, name, color with their data type, and also I have given the constraint. Now you might be thinking, what is primary key in SQL, right? The primary key constraint, it identifies each records in a table. Primary keys, it contains the unique values and it cannot take null values. A table can only have one primary key, and in the table this primary key can consist of single or multiple columns. So here you can see that my ID is a primary key, and I have also applied the auto increment. I can show you this. Now you might be thinking where the values are coming from. Basically I have already integrated my project, so the values are coming from the project. Now let me show you how to. First I'll run my project. I'll go to front end, and after front end I'm going to run npm start. So this is basically going to